What's up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and today I'm gonna learn you something. As you know, I'm an illustrator. I focus a lot on character design, and I've pointed out before how a lot of studios, they just don't seem to get it. For instance, I'm gonna use a lot of examples from Injustice: Gods Among Us, because a lot of people are dick riding that game, but it's not the best design. They missed the mark on so many of the characters, and I'm going to explain to you the difference between what is good and what is bad and what needs to change when it comes to character design. So we're going to take Batman, for instance. This is what Batman is supposed to look like. This is probably the most popular look for Batman, give or take a few tweaks with, you know, the bat symbol but with the yellow background, or just the retro bat costume that we've been seeing in the last like 10 years. How the fuck do you go from that to this? And this is not to knock the people, because they're talented. I mean, you can see that whoever modeled this, they know their shit. The lighting is nice, the detailing is there, but the design, the person who sat down and designed this, come on, man. And then, you know, it's one thing to just make a design. I can see all the influences. You can see all the different movie armors that they're trying to imitate, you know, the shit from Batman and Robin at the end, those second suits they had, the Dark Knight trilogy's armor. There's a lot going on here. But how did you look at that, you know, this? In the same world where this exists, how did we get that previous thing, you know? It doesn't make sense. And you know, the funny thing is, in video games, you're not confined to the same constraints you would be in a film, because no one has to actually wear the costume. This is the secondary costume in Injustice, which is a step up. It looks more like riot gear almost. But the whole armor thing, it looks way too heavy. It doesn't look mobile enough. Now, that's Batman. You can see where my inspirations came from. I don't know why that came out so slow. But you can see where my inspirations came from. You could see that I'm keeping the shape, form, the line, and the function. Granted, every design you've seen so far, the silhouette is mostly the same, because that's important with Batman. The armor and the functionality of that armor have to work, and it has to show in the design. Here's just the line work, so you can see more detail, you know, if you decide to, you know, look up closer at what I'm doing. You can see there are armored pieces on this costume, but mostly in the chest, the gauntlets, the boots, and the knees. Everything else is kind of free and it's lighter because he's got to jump around and he's wearing that heavy-ass cape. Form follows function. I can't drive this point home anymore. Arkham City and Arkham Asylum, they got it right. Rocksteady Studios, those cats know their shit. That's Batman, you know? The costume mimics the movies, the comics, everything. This, not so much, even though from far away, it does feel like Batman Beyond. But when you get up close, which I'm about to do in a sec, it becomes a whole different story. I mean, you can see those weird textures and whatnot on him, but we all know Batman Beyond is supposed to have a smooth black, either matte or sometimes gloss finish suit. It's simple. And there's this assumption that because the character comes from the animated series and it's a very simple, simplified design, that when you try to fully realize that character in 3D, you got to go crazy with textures and you got to go crazy with modeling, and it's not always the case. You can still retain the simple nature of the original design and still present it in 3 dimensions. I mean, Silver Surfer is a smooth surface, you know, but he's a 3-dimensional character in all the films we've seen him in. Shit, even in his cartoon, he was a 3D model when he was on his surfboard flying around in space. So it's like, you know, it just depends on your approach to the shapes that you create with the body, not necessarily the suit itself. Wonder Woman, they got this right. I like this design. I think this design works. It fits in that whole, you know, medieval, you know, she's an Amazon and they're kind of out of time type situation. This is an alternate Nightwing. It's a Damian Wayne as Nightwing. I like the design, but it's so heavy. Look at how big and thick all that armor is. It just doesn't fit for an acrobatic fighter like Nightwing. You know what I'm saying? Aquaman, same deal. It's too much. I like the lines and the shapes of the pieces that make up the armor plating, but it's still too much and it's way all over the place. And They needed to come up with a pattern and stick to it. Ares, I love that, because they just went full on World of Warcraft with his ass, and it works, you know? You can't really do too much with Ares because he is supposed to be an ancient force. Now, Jon Stewart, this is where I have some issues, and I give him props, but at the same time, they missed the mark. Jon Stewart is another one of those characters who has a very simple design. All you have to do is give him a chunk of green and a lot of black, because they did that well with his design in both the Justice League animated series and in the comics. That's what kind of separated him from others from a design standpoint. Look at all this overly thought out shit. It's like they overthought the design and it becomes too busy. And that's the problem I find with a lot of video game designs in general. And it's worse when they have like pre-existing information. I mean, this is Jon Stewart. It's that simple. All you need to work with is his beard or his hair, and that's it. Very simple character. Very simple design, you know what I'm saying, for the character. Stark, iconic. You don't have to go the Marvel route and just keep changing shit for the sake of changing shit. This Bane sucks. It doesn't look like Bane, it doesn't feel like Bane, and it feels like the parts of it that are Bane feel like the Bane from Batman and Robin, and nobody wants to retread those waters. Black Adam. This is one of his alternate suits. Nothing about the suit says Black Adam. It's just there's black parts. But this could have been Imhotep from fucking The Mummy. It could have been anybody. You have to get the iconic nature of the character there. This is Shazam's alternate suit, or Captain Marvel. It works. I mean, it's too dark for Captain Marvel, in my opinion, but the story seems dark, and it seems like this is the direction it would go. So, not so bad. They made the hood fit right and everything. It works. Cyborg. I like this design to some degree, but it's too clunky, in my opinion. It's like they made him bigger when they should have made him sleeker. That's one of the things that bothers me. It's because, like, he's supposed to be super high, sophisticated technology, and if you notice, when technology starts getting more and more up there, things get smaller, things get smoother, you can see less of the tech, and there's more of a design element to it. I mean, when you look at the concept art, all that's there. It's just that somehow it didn't really translate as well into the actual finished model. He looks too bulky in the finished model. And this is what I'm saying, there's a disconnect as far as design goes. Yes, he's a cyborg, yes, you should go off with him, but you also got to think about things. Got to watch the proportions. He's not just another big black dude. You don't want him to look monkey-ish, because that says something about the guys designing it and what they thought of the character, you know? Like this, I would have avoided this shit with everything I could. He looks like a robotic monkey. I mean, like, if I cover his head, that's like ape body. And you want to avoid that when you're designing like a black character. You don't want people to think, oh wow, they don't like this character. They think black folks look like monkeys. They think, you know what I'm saying? You stay away from that shit. Now this, it's awesome. It's kind of blocky though in parts, you know, like too many segments and whatnot. But I dig it because it looks alien. It doesn't look like, hey, it's just a chick in a suit with wings. Now Lex. This is cool because we already saw this design in the, what was that game? The DC Online. We saw this design kind of foreshadowed in there. Now, the Kryptonian version of the suit kind of pisses me off because all they did was have the kryptonite aspect protruding from the suit. Just because it uses kryptonite doesn't mean you have to see it protruding, literally the stone sticking out of the suit. I mean, you could have had a green power source. Raven. This is kind of classic, and I like the little updated pieces because it feels more like a modern take on the character, you know? She doesn't feel overdone in any area. And, like, if you were to look her up from the comics, that's what she looks like. This Flash, he's actually one of the biggest offenders in this story. That looks like a version of an Elseworlds Flash, and I think that's exactly what it is. So, you know, whatever. I still don't think that was the best Elseworlds Flash to use, but whatever. But this shit... The whole point of Flash's costume is that it's made of the Speed Force. That's why there are versions of the suit, mainly after the 90s. They always drew his suit shiny and reflective and frictionless. Frictionless. This is a man who can run through time. He's so ridiculously fast. You can't have these bulky, like, huge seams and plates of armor and all. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, granted, we've seen versions where they did that. No. And I hate that. You can't work on something like this and not research the character and understand what the character does and what he should look like and why they look this way and why their parts work the way they work. That's just not... It doesn't make sense, you know what I'm saying? And this is nothing against the designers, it's just this is something they should have been aware of. Now, it's funny when you move over to Japanese designers, a lot of them have been putting so much shit on the characters, so much decorative shit on the characters, it just doesn't look like they could move in that shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, this armor, too decorative. Maxi, it's a decent design, but I mean, let's be real. Feudal Japan or China, I think he's from Ryukyu. Even if he's a pirate, he wouldn't look like Elvis. He wouldn't be wearing shit that wasn't invented yet. And that's me nitpicking, but it's just, you know, I know Soul Calibur is more anime than it is real world, you know. That's why there are no black people besides Zasalamel, which pisses me off, because there's a lot of black martial arts that, or African martial arts that could have been showcased in this game, and a lot of weapons, really interesting weapons that could have been used. Ivy, I'm not even going to go into this design. I married a thick woman with big old boobs and big hips, and, you know, whatever. We like that shit. It doesn't fit, but, you know, hey. Killick, a lot of what he's wearing looks heavy. Granted, he's got kung fu pants on and stuff. It's just too many, in my opinion, there are too many decorative elements, but it does work in this case. Cervantes, I don't really like this design. It feels too much like they ripped off Pirates of the Caribbean, and it doesn't necessarily fit Cervantes as a character, because the Cervantes I remember was more of a pirate, more of an old school pirate, you know, with powerful weapons. Cassandra, they need to tear that shit up and not put her in games like that. She's supposed to be a Greek hero, or heroine, I'm sorry. How did she get this costume? What the fuck? It's like something you get from an adult superstore or something, you know, costume store. Zasalamel, now he couldn't fight in all that shit. It just, no, that's like a priest's uniform or something kind of uniform that wouldn't allow for a lot of fighting, you know. Now for their you know, in their defense, they did make this suit, and this suit works. That looks like something you'd fight in. There's freedom, the form follows the function, and it looks badass too. You just can't have a character look badass and not look functional. Like, all those spikes, there's like a number of directions that if he moves, he's going to kill himself, or he's going to stab himself, or he just won't be able to complete the move. Yet he's one of the faster, more powerful, more deceptive characters. It doesn't make sense. I was never a fan of her and her brother. I think, what is it, Fira and Patroclus or something like that. I never liked them. I think they're too anime generic, you know? That's a schoolgirl costume right there with those boots. Siegfried, this version of Siegfried always angered me because it was just too much. I mean, you can clearly see there are angles that the design of the sword just wouldn't allow him to move in. And since we're getting to 3D and you're trying to be super realistic, I mean, you get this awesome drawing, and then it doesn't make sense. Like this, like I said, adult costume store. Same goes for Ivy. As much as we love her big old busty awesomeness, you know, this is a little better because they combined all the costumes that she's had up to this point, and she's a little covered up. We got cleavage instead of just full-on under boob, over boob, and just boob. But, you know, seriously. And then this one, I like it. It's another one of those simple ones, but it's a ripoff of Guts from Berserk. And, you know, they need to start doing more original designs and less just ripping, because ripping off stuff is worse than being inspired. The whole point of this is just to show you that there are some really flashy designs out there that still fundamentally miss the point of a sound character design, in my opinion, you know? And, you know, we're used to a lot of them, so we don't even think about it. And I'm sure that's the same thing going through the designer's, you know, head while, you know, they're designing these things. Now, let's take toys, right? I'm a big collector, you know this. I love superheroes. Cyclops is my favorite X-Man. But you have to admit, when they take the DCUC route and they paint everything on, it kind of makes the figure look kind of cheesy. In this case, it works. This is probably the best Cyclops that we've received thus far with full, articulation and whatnot. But, we've seen customs that look better. Why not improve on this design with the same kind of method that the original Marvel Legends did? This is my redo, my remix of Cyclops from the 90s. I added shoulder pads that would be yellow, so we have the yellow going throughout the costume. Also on the bicep, there's a little pad. He's got the pockets on his bandolier. You've seen some people draw it like that. He's got pockets on his pants, so they look more like BDUs. They look more military, I guess. And he's got knee pads. But all the elements from the original design are still there. That's what we need in newer Marvel Legends, as opposed to just painting on the Bucky cap body every second and giving him a new head. This Bishop, I have so many issues with this Bishop figure, and it's not the design. The design is on point. It's just, his skin looked like rhinoceros skin. His joints, he had way too many joints for a big character, so he couldn't barely stand properly. But if you look closely, they put armor in the places that should have armor. You see the knee pads that you never saw in the comics. What if we went further? So this is my remix of Bishop. Modernize that old school design, Grown, big-ass, muscular military men don't walk around with a jerry curl or a perm like that anymore. So dreadlocks, and they, Bishop does have dreads in the comics. Add more armor to his costume to make him look a little bit more hardcore, Spice it up, make it look a little bit more tactical and a little bit more believable in what's going on. Like you can see, he's got clips, he's got bombs, he's got a place for everything. He's even got a knife on his shoulder, so, it makes sense. So, now we come to Gambit. Everyone knows Gambit. We all remember the Marvel Legends Gambit. We also remember the awesome Marvel Select Gambit. Problem was scale. Pretty much they got a lot right with him. He just looks homeless. I mean, that's the only way I could describe this figure. They just need to kind of simplify some of those details, Get really clean with it. Give us the level of polish that the Marvel Select version had, and then tweak some things, Downplay the mask thing around his face. Make his hair a little bit longer and more, something you'd see a white guy with long hair walking around looking like, The coat's the same, the boots are pretty much the same. I didn't do too much because to me, it's a classic design. So if we're going to go classic, like a remixed classic, go for it. Just change the colors and make them a little darker. Psylocke, she was my favorite female X-Men. I had a thing for Asian women back in the day, and yeah, she fit the bill for me, even though technically she's not really Asian. But her design is cool. It's not too much you need to do. The figure actually is one of the better female figures in my opinion. I like that first Psylocke better than this X-Force Psylocke because I don't like that teenage body type they keep using. Psylocke was always a sexy character, so, follow that. But make her look a little bit more tactical. As you can see, she's got the ninja vibe if you look at the way the pieces of her suit fit. But I didn't go full out like, hey, she's Asian, so we're going to do everything Asian on this one character. And that's not to, put anything on Marvel, the Toy Biz sculptors and whatnot, because they were following the model, and that was the model. But, as far as amping it up for a new version, this would be good, She even's got tabbies for her feet, and I put the little, outer foot cover or whatever, upper foot cover. Jubilee. This is what Jubilee looks like. We're about to get a Marvel Legends version of this Jubilee. Pretty much an upscale from the Marvel Universe Jubilee. They need to fix that, man. Go back to her roots, man. Make her look a little happier. I know she's a vampire now and all that shit, but the character was a little bit happier and a little bit more stylish than a chick that would wear a black bodysuit, a fucking cat suit, with a trench coat on top of it, Take it a step further. She has to look like someone that runs around on adventures with Wolverine, you know what I'm saying? Wearing a black bodysuit like all the other Asian women that hang around Wolverine, like, come on now, that's kind of lame, Yukio did that shit. Mariko did that shit at one point. They got to change that. Rogue. This is the infamous, horrible Marvel Legends Rogue figure. Rogue needs a lot of help because she hasn't really received that many awesome figures. My favorite Rogue figure was the X-Men vs. Street Fighter Rogue by Toy Biz, and it was like a 4 or 5 inch figure. And she didn't even have like real features. She had anime features. She's a sexy character. Make her sexy. Go off with her hair. As long as there's white in there, along with the dark, brown hair, it's going to be perfect. Make a version that doesn't have the jacket. Or put the jacket on, but sculpt this body. You know what I'm saying? Give her some personality. She's a Southern belle. Southern belles are sexy and they're cool. They're the kind of girl that guys want. This is the new Rogue that we were supposed to get in the Wolverine line. And they nixed her to release her in the X-Men Days of Future Past line. I like it. I'm still more of a fan of her previous version because it seems like all the X-chicks wear skirts. And I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like now, they make everybody, all the older ones, look like, I don't know. She needs more of her suit. Change the hair, like I did here. But she needs that tactical rough and tumble. I mean, she fights. The green suit looks like what she would go out on a date with, Gambit wearing. If you can see, this is unfinished because this was just a sketch that I did just because. And I just wanted to see what the hair would look like and what longer gloves would look like. But as you can see, she still looks like the rough and tumble Southern belle that we know. Beast. The thing with Beast is most of his designs don't make sense. He's refined, he's smart, but then he's running around in a Speedo. And that was his design for a very long time, and I never understood that. Then we got to this point where they changed him into a cat, and he was wearing these weird, like, bodysuits and stuff. And I'm like, okay, that looks a little bit better, but it doesn't quite say Beast personality-wise. I don't see him dressing like that. I wanted to take all the different versions of Beast, put them together, but then mix them with the anime, the X-Men anime version of Beast, which I really dug because they had him running around in like a tux and like a suit jack, a pea coat, an X-Men pea coat. And it just felt more like he felt more refined. He had his hair combed and shit instead of the Wolverine dude that he's had for so long. And I know some things are traditional because people got used to it because that's just the way he was presented. But I think that jacket and, better pants, that aren't so freaking tight would help make him look a little bit more iconic in my opinion. So I went for a combination of the two. As you can see, he's got a cool jacket with the, that kind of folds over like the pea coat. The buttons are hidden behind the flap. The X is on the outside, and his big old hands and feet are exposed. Sabretooth. Sabretooth, this is the figure of Sabretooth from the Wolverine. Now, Sabretooth is not in the Wolverine, and this costume is kind of a version of a costume that we've seen in the comics, but it's not. It's a lazy version of it. You know what I'm saying? His costumes were always more detailed than this. It's really lazy. You just took Piledriver or one of those big dudes from the Return to Marvel Legends line, and you barely painted anything on him. There's nothing here. He just needs his mane. He needs most of the details that came from the previous costume. We need texture. We need something to make him look ferocious other than his fangs and his claws, because Sabretooth was always an imposing character. Bring that shit back. Like this. I was thinking X-Men vs. Street Fighter with his stature. He needs the elbow blades like he always had back in the day. He needs the claws that are a little bit, the hands that are a little oversized. He needs the mane because that just helps set off the suit. And then if you look at like the inner portion of his arms, I created a seam that runs all the way towards his chest where there's like a netting or a diamond pattern for this like stretchy material because dude's gonna be clawing all over the place. I gave him leatherish looking pants, shiny dark pants, because back in the day he did have a lot of brown on his suit, and it would just look cool if you simplify and make the pants dark instead. That's what we need. That would look awesome fighting Wolverine. Next up we got Magneto. Now this is from the X-Men Legends line that came out around the time that X3 came out. Now, I know this isn't his actual costume, but there are elements from this costume that were borrowed from the movie costume, which I think is the best design of Magneto, because he's an old guy. You know, that ripped purple and red costume we always saw? No. He's old. He's got to be in his 60s, you know what I mean? Or maybe his 70s. So take elements from the movie costume, which I really love, and, you know, just think old man, but you got to make him thorough. And then you'll have what I would consider the perfect Magneto design. You take the regal, you know, holding his cape, you know, so it's not dragging on the floor. Make the helmet cover more of his face, you know, so that people just can't tell that the guy underneath this mask or this helmet is an old man, you know, that's wielding all this power. But, you know, he's got this kind of semi-dictatorish look, you know, this almost like a royal look, like an evil knight almost, you know, and you know, minus the armor, but I'm just saying, you know, the way he carries himself, the way I mean, shit, Ian McKellen is a knight, so I guess it makes sense, but you see what I'm saying. There are little bits of regal in this design. And that's what you need to make Magneto look the part. Anyway, this was kind of some insight as to what I think is lacking in, well, the good and the bad with a lot of modern character designs. You know, I could have done this for about like 3 or 4 hours. This could be a 10-part series, but I wanted to show you even like immaculate illustrations that still miss the point. You know what I'm saying? And it's not to say that these artists suck. They're good artists, but whoever's giving them direction is not giving them the right direction. You know what I'm saying? In some cases, they're totally missing the point because the function and the form don't match, yet they're going for realism. And then in other cases, they got it with simple tweaks. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I showed you with these Marvel Legends, they're completely off and they're going for a 3-dimensional physical form. You know what I'm saying? So as I close, you're going to be seeing images that I've done for a project that I called Legacy of the Atom. This picture that you're looking at now is a convention sketch. When I we used to have a design team back in the day, and we used to do these things, these battles at conventions, where someone would come up with a character, we all do it, and then the fans walking by would decide which of us did the best job. And usually they'd buy the one they like the best, you know. Most times, actually, all of it sold. But Legacy of the Atom was a reimagining of the X-Men story with kind of a military and a conspiracy theory kind of conspiracy theorist kind of angle to it. But I gave up on it, but I still have the sketches, so maybe someday I'll do it. So that's what you'll be seeing in the background. Cyclops, I decided to make black. He was ex-military. He was a SEAL Team 6 member, one of the youngest in history. He's kind of like a genius when it came to strategy and combat and whatnot. But his powers manifested while on an op, and he ended up killing his team by accident. And so on the hush-hush, the military had to get him out of there. You know, the government, the top brass was like, peace, we don't like mutants, they gotta go, you know? And I wanted to play up more of the parallels of anti-mutant hate to racial, you know, hate. And because that's what was intended, you know? We played up Magneto and Professor X as the Martin Luther King, Malcolm X kind of, you know, archetypes. But anyway, its character design is really simple, you know? It's really simple if you pay attention. The point of me taking the time to bring these pictures to light is so that you see that when I'm talking about what's wrong with things, I can also offer you a solution to the problem. You know what I'm saying? Many times we get online and we see people bitch and moan and complain and, you know, this sucks, this is ass, this is horrible, this is bullshit, blah, 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 but then they don't offer any type of insight as to how we can fix the problem. Now, wouldn't it be cool if the billions of people that we talk to or that we come across on the internet offered solutions to the problems that we have? You know what I'm saying? Like, all of us have issues, and a lot of us have issues with the same shit. Now, imagine if we all put our heads together and came up with solutions, you know? Like a solution for saving the DCUC line, or a solution for saving, at the time, the Toy Biz Marvel Legends, as well as improving it, because even though they were awesome, they weren't perfect. You know what I'm saying? I think that sort of thing would have lended itself perfectly to the internet, but that's not where people's minds are. But that's where mine is, and I'm pretty sure that's where you out there, my ninjas, that's where you are. So I'm letting you know that, you know, my scope doesn't stop at War of the Gods. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here trying to throw out a little bit of insight and a little bit of a solution to a lot of things that we don't like, you know? Once again, I'm stressing to you guys, because I don't want to see in the comments someone saying, oh, you think those guys suck and this guy's better than you and blah, blah, blah. The Namco artist is one of my favorite artists. I forgot his name, and I don't know why. I don't think I've ever looked it up, and maybe I'll do that right now. Give me a second. So it seems a whole bunch of people are the concept artists, and they're all good. They all have a style that gels. Takuji Kawano, Yutaka Izubuchi, Mine Yoshikaze, Hiroya Oku, Ito Ogure, Oh Great, Hideo Yoshie, Hirokazu Hisayuki. All of them are involved in the Tekken stuff and the Soul Calibur stuff. They're all awesome artists. The same goes for some of the other people that I pointed out, the people at NetherRealm Studios. It's a bunch of good artists. They're not my idols. I can do what they do, and I can do it better in some ways. You know what I mean? I could do it just as well, whatever. I think they missed the point a lot of the way, because it was more of them trying to make their mark as opposed to them being true to the characters. And, you know, for some, that's not a flaw. To me, it's a flaw, because you have to maintain the integrity of the original design. That's first and foremost, because form follows function. End of story. So, you know, this is my perspective on these things. You know, whenever I'm given an assignment involving character design, you'll always be able to tell exactly who I was drawing, and you'll be able to see, you know, the changes I made and understand why I made those changes. You know what I'm saying? And even if I decide to tell you, you know, because there's some people like here, this is Mimic. He's the main big bad for this story. I completely revamped Mimic because Mimic didn't really have an identity as a original character back in the day. He just was a blonde guy with everybody else's powers sticking out. What I wanted to do is it's a reveal in this one. So, you know, there's a method to the madness. So anyway, I'm Strident. That has been a look at some character design do's and don'ts, and, you know, good ones and bad ones. You guys have been great. And yeah, peace outside. Till the next video.